Welcome to Under the Microscope. This series is brought to you by the Real Scientists Nano team. Our goal is to provide a platform where scientists can communicate their work and interact with the public. With that in mind, every week we introduce you to a scientist working in the field of materials and nanoscience, who would be curating the RealSci_Nano Twitter account.
Hi everyone, today we have with us Said Rodriguez, who is a scientific group leader leading the group Interactive Photons at a research institute in Amsterdam called AMOLF. Hi Said, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing great, and you?
I'm good. Looking forward to taking a deeper dive into your science and getting to know you as a scientist. So let's start by talking about your scientific journey so far. So please tell us about your scientific career so far.
Right. So thank you for hosting me, first of all. So I started my journey in science, let's say, as a bachelor student in the US. I had the childhood dream to become an astronaut. So I went to study to an aeronautical / astronautical university in Florida, close to Cape Canaveral, called Embry-Riddle. So I did my bachelor's there, and along the way, I ended up getting more exciting about light and quantum. So I decided to switch gears and go and do photonics. So I did an Erasmus Mundus master's program in photonics. This was a consortium of 5 universities in Europe, and I ended up going to Sweden, KTH, and then I went to Ghent in Belgium. And after my master's, I got excited about a field that is known as plasmonics, that deals with antennas that are very, very tiny, so nano antennas for light. Yeah. So, and then I went to do a PhD at an AMOLF group, so the same institute where I work now, but this group was based in Eindhoven in the labs of Philips Research. And so we were doing research on metallic nanoantennas for solid state lighting, so applications to LEDs and these kinds of things. After my PhD at AMOLF and Philips and so on, then I moved on to France, where I did a postdoc. I switched gears again a bit, going a bit more fundamental into topics of nonlinear and quantum optics. In the Center for Nanoscience and Nanotechnologies, it's in the area of Paris. I got a Marie Curie fellowship to do that. Then I was about 2.5 years. Then I did a really short postdoc because in the first month I got my offer at AMOLF. So I did a short postdoc in Utrecht. And then I got the offer to start a group at AMOLF. That was this November will be 4 years from that. And so, yeah, practically the last 4 years, I been starting my group and having lots of fun with exploring yet a new research direction with respect to what I did before.
Okay. Wow. That's quite, you're the definition of traveling scientist. That's what I see here. US, Sweden, France, Belgium, now Netherlands. So if I may ask, where are you with this dream of being an astronaut? Is it still one of your dreams, or are you changing gears?
Not anymore. Yeah. So, I mean, these days is the dreams for the billionaires, right? Now it's with the Bezos and these kind of guys, right? So, I think, that was really inspirational for me as a child. In Mexico, it seemed like, the stories of the astronauts were always amazing, right? Of how it changed their perspective of life and the fragility of the Earth. And I mean, I would still be excited to do that, but I don't think you need to go that far to appreciate the Earth in which we live in anymore. And so, I think you just need to see what we are losing already to appreciate what we still have. And so I'm happy to just have fun here on Earth and try to to look at the small scales of things.
Right, right. That makes sense and beautifully said. Definitely beautifully said. That let's appreciate what we have around us. We don't need to leave the earth to start appreciating the earth. That absolutely right. So you mentioned that it will be soon 4 years since you started your independent research group, Interactive Photons.
Yes.
So where does your current work fit in this big picture of materials and nanoscience? Because it's quite a broad field. So
Yes.
where does it fit in?
So we are mostly a physics group. So we are driven by fundamental physics questions. But we use nanomaterials and nanoscience. So we look at small scales, low energy physics, I would say. And yeah, so materials and nanotechnology is just an enabling technology for us. So we are not, but there is also, a kind of inspiration from the ideas that we encountered during our explorations to also develop new sort of nanotechnologies and devices and these kind of things. So we are also interested in that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. That sounds good. So it sounds to me also that you have been involved in a lot of interesting research projects, and you are also now doing a lot of interesting research projects. So if you have to pick one research project that you're most proud of, I know it's difficult because you're probably proud of most of your projects and experiments. But if you have to pick one that you're most closest to your heart, let me put it that way. Could you pick one and explain it to us in simple words in the section we call In Other Words?
Yes. Yeah. So indeed, so there's a lot of things I feel proud of, but I'm gonna take the opportunity to focus on a recent work that has been really quite a journey of excitement for us. And this work has to do with a phenomenon called stochastic resonance. So this is a phenomenon where a small amount of noise, or in some cases can be quite large, can actually improve the performance of certain systems, like in the context of information processing. So the idea is that the idea comes from actually from climate science. It was coined in the 1981 or so. So somebody was looking at the recurrence of ice ages in the planet that happens every 100,000 years or so. And someone proposed that if you combine so if you take the Earth as a nonlinear system, and if you combine periodic forcing from it has to do with the eccentricity of the orbit and noise in the solar radiation, then this could explain the recurrence of ice ages. So it was tiny variations in the incoming solar radiation. And then this sort of started a whole field of stochastic resonance, where people have now found evidence for a wide variety of systems, from plants and animals and mechanical systems and electrical systems and computing systems and you name it, where noise can be beneficial. Yeah, so for signal transmission, for all kinds of functionalities. And so we got quite interested in this and saw that there is a kind of paradox, or kind of a puzzle in this field, in the sense that it's a very stochastic resonance is a very pervasive phenomenon. So you found it all around us in nature, but it's also a very fragile phenomenon. And you can wonder, how can something so fragile, meaning if you change the parameters a little bit from the sweet spot, it breaks down. You can wonder how something so fragile is so pervasive and universal. And so in this work that I telling you about, we had the idea, okay, what happens when you assume that a system does not respond instantaneously, right? So I think the greatest myth in physics which we owe to Newton, is that systems respond instantaneously, right? He postulated the existence of instantaneous forces, and this came to be known as Newton's laws. But fundamentally, they're wrong, because nothing in nature responds instantaneously. There's always a time delay. There's always a finite response time. And so Newton's laws are a good approximation for many systems, but in many cases, they're not.
Right.
And so we lifted that approximation, and we did some experiments with, in a nutshell, 2 mirrors, a micrometer apart, and a drop of olive oil, macadamia oil, and this one in between.
Okay.
And then we shined the laser, and we did this whole stochastic resonance experiment. And we found that if you allow...
Wait, you put oil?
We put macadamia oil, yes.
Okay. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah. So this was another sort of interesting twist to our research. So we like to make photons interact. For a stochastic resonance requires something that is called a nonlinear response. And in optics, that corresponds to photons effectively interacting with each other. And that requires a nonlinear material, which in our case is this macadamia oil. Okay. So
crazy. That's crazy. Please go on.
Yeah. So a few years ago, when we said we're gonna put olive oil, we started with olive oil, and people were really kind of laughing, and I mean just. But then the interesting physics started to come out, and it's one of those things that first you laugh and then you think.
Actually, it makes sense and it works.
that was for us the journey. So we had this idea to get these interactions from these oils, and then we did the stochastic resonance experiment and found a really compelling explanation to the robustness of stochastic resonance in terms of non-instantaneous response. So meaning you push a system and he takes a little while to respond. And in our case, the push is with lights, and the response has to do with how the refractive index of this oil changes with time. Yeah, that's the experiment. So I will be telling more about this experiment during the week. We published the paper recently, a few months ago.
What was the title?
Ooh, it's a very long title.
Please tell me there is the oil in the title. Please tell me you came up with a quirky title like oil, science with oil or something like that. Please tell me that.
Fortunately, I don't think we have oil in the title because so this was the fight with the referees that we already had another paper. So this was in the same journal in Physical Review Letters. Right. And last year we had another paper there where really the focus was on the oil. But it was olive oil. We changed the oil for some practical reasons, not so relevant to the physics. Right. But then, we didn't want to. The focus was no longer on the oil, but rather on the physics.
You missed an opportunity there. Please tell me there was a press release, or there will be a press release.
Of course, there was a press release, and there were like 10 different news. We were in the BBC, we were in Yahoo, in Popular Mechanics. It was all over the place. Of how basically, so the first title of our paper is called Universal Scaling in the Dynamic Hysteresis and Non-Markovian Dynamics of a Tunable Optical Cavity. So there's no oil there, but we wrote, there is a universal scaling, so relation.
You did go a little bit quirky there.
So people were like, wow, there is a new universal law of physics discovered thanks to a drop of olive oil, right? That was the catchy title, and it went all over the place. We were quite excited with this. And this more recent paper I was telling you about stochastic resonance, which is this noise-assisted signal transmission. This was also in a lot of news outlets. Received a lot of coverage.
Can imagine, yeah.
Because it was really like, it just put a macadamia oil drop in between 2 meters, and then all this exciting physics came out, right?
It's amazing. It's like it's so cool. It's so quirky and so cool. I can imagine why you picked this as one of the projects, let's say, that you're most proud of, or the one that is close to your heart, because it's definitely, I mean, from a scientific point of view, it's amazing. And also from the fun and quirkiness point of view, also, it's quite a lot of fun.
Yes.
Like with olive oil or macadamia oil, it's
So to give
so
you the
cool.
title of this paper, just to answer your question, is this paper I was talking about is called Extremely Broadband Stochastic Resonance of Light and Enhanced Energy Harvesting Enabled by Memory Effects in the Nonlinear Response.
Okay.
It's a long title, but it does reflect two things I want to talk about. So stochastic resonance and energy harvesting.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, with oil.
With oil.
With oil, very important.
Yeah. So yeah, we had all this debate about these different oils, and then at some point, one of the perks of doing this outreach is that I was contacted by an olive producer in Spain who is also, he has like this oil plantation and is making olive oil. He was so amazed that he sent me a couple of olive oils to test in the experiment. Of course, I had a lot of nice salads with them first.
Of course. You have to see how good the oil is, if it fits in your experiment, of course, totally.
And then we had some experiments as well.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. Well, Seth, it definitely sounds to me that you love the part of the research aspect of being a scientist. But there are also other aspects to you being a scientist and perks of being scientist, like getting olive oil bottles, which you can use for your salad, and also in your lab. So, other than the research part itself, like going to the lab, doing experiments, and all of that, what else do you like about being a scientist?
I think the thing that I appreciate the most is the people I'm surrounded with. So I think as a scientist, we are surrounded usually by very creative, driven, enthusiastic people. That many are curiosity driven, other technologically driven, but then the combination of those two is really powerful, I think. And I just love the environment, right? The space to think about new things and things that I find exciting. So yeah, that was another thing that I used to like before was traveling, but that's kind of changing now. That definitely changed.
Yes.
And yeah, I think just meeting all these different people and scientists from all various parts in the world and interacting with them, and it really shaped me as a person and character. Yeah.
Okay.
And I love the science communication too, the writing the papers, the going to the presentation of my colleagues and presenting myself, or probably I haven't said the most exciting part, but I think in a regular basis. So I think by far the most exciting part is working with a motivated and talented students. Yeah, this is really a privilege that I enjoy very much. When you have a student that is both motivated and talented, and sometimes I just go with them to the lab, not very often, but I go and that's really a pleasure. Yeah, to think about things together and these kind of things. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds really um, really nice that you're surrounded by amazing people, not just your colleagues, but also your students and teammates. That's very, very important. I think it's really, really important in driving the research and you being a scientist. Absolutely. So speaking of students, what advice would you either give to yourself if you were starting out today, or to the students who are starting out now? What advice would you give?
See, that I struggle a bit with that question because it's so broad, and of course there are so many different characters and needs, and I don't know what to say. In what topic or in what area or in what level of would you encourage me to focus on?
So let's say students, a master's student, so to say, who is starting out their scientific journey, scientific career, and they know that they want to stay in science,
I see.
definitely. What advice would you give them? What do you think they should know, or what kind of situations that they should prepare themselves for, or what kind of attitude they should have?
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Oh, okay. Attitude. Advice in terms of attitude. Okay. So we have talked about the excitement and the fun aspect of doing science.
Yeah.
But there is also a very painful part for me that nobody prepared me for, and I just didn't realize before. And is the amount of rejection you have to deal with. For papers, this was never an issue because we had a paper, and when we got the paper rejected, okay, we go to another journal, and okay, you got rejected, then you go to another one, and you go down the staircase. Eventually, it gets published. I've never written a paper that was never published. Some papers took a long time, 2 years or whatever, but everything eventually got published. Yeah. Now, once you transition to a PI or a group leader, then you have to write grants. And there is just so much rejection I've had to endure so much rejection for reasons I cannot explain and understand. And these things never see the light of the world, right? Because there's not like a journal for failed grant proposals or anything like that. So, you spend a tremendous amount of time, crafting these proposals, fine tuning every single sentence, thinking of how it's going to be perceived by this and this person. And in the end, someone in the flip of a moment decides, no, this is not going to be funded. And when, a lot of the sort of young sort of group leaders, assistant professors I talk to, this is really the most painful part when you have to deal with rejections regularly for reasons that you cannot understand. I would say the advice is learn how to deal with rejection because if you want to stay in science, unless you are really extremely talented and lucky, because it's not just about being talented, you will have to deal with a lot of rejection. And it's just part of it.
Okay, learn how to deal with rejections. And you already mentioned a very nice journal idea there, a journal of rejected research proposals.
Yeah, this would be really
helpful.
What happens so this is the point, right? We as scientists, we spend so much time writing and fine-tuning all these proposals that most of them never see the light of the world. And what happens to those ideas? Nothing, right? So
might as well publish them in some journal.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I think the reason why that's difficult is because people have the hope that next time they will get it, right?
Right.
Right, and that's why I think it hasn't happened.
Or maybe there can be like a time limit, right? After 2 years of submitting it to multiple agencies, if you still don't get it, then publish all the different
I used to think that, but this week I saw in Twitter the amazing story of a scientist in the US who tried to get a grant 33 times. 33 without success. In the 34th, she succeeded.
Oh my God! Yes, that's a success story.
She was extremely happy, right? And then I was, last week I was really upset and complaining about, 5 failures, and I said, okay, I think I have something to learn from her about endurance and perseverance.
Absolutely. Well said. I hope your research experience, other than the rejection part of the research proposal rejection part, has been wonderful and will continue to be wonderful.
Yeah,
However, if you have three wishes to improve your research experience, what would you ask for? And I'm not promising anything here, okay?
of course. Uh, three wishes. Let's see. Well, I think the first one ties to the struggle that I was mentioning a moment ago. So base funding. I
Mm-hmm.
think so. Currently, we do science on the basis of grants, but there is no base funding. So if we just ran out of luck, then yeah, there's nothing, right? So I think the current system makes it very difficult to have a sustained efforts into a research direction. So the number one wish would be a base funding that I would have the certainty to always have at least one student. Yeah. I
Yeah.
know I'm fortunate to have four, so I was complaining, but I've also been fortunate in other areas. So, but yeah, I would be happy to have always a secure base funding of at least a small number of students.
Mm-hmm.
That would be wish number one.
Oh.
Wish number two, in this particular moment of time, we don't have any females in my group. We had some before, but not now, and I'm really sad by that. I would really like to. My second wish would be really to have a female in the group. But on the other hand, we don't have positions, so it could only be interns, right? So it's when we had last year we had a fantastic female student who really wanted to stay and do a PhD, but then I didn't get the grant and she had to leave. So so this is wish number two. And let's see. I don't know if I have another one. I think in terms of science, this is really my main two wishes.
More olive oil, more coffee, more tea.
Olive oil, more coffee. Yeah, that's always nice. Well, of course, I mean, the end of the pandemic, right? I mean, I think this is a global wish uh, from everyone. This does require more people to get vaccinated. So if I can use my wish for something, it's to ask everyone to please get vaccinated. Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, I wish yeah, to return to a more normal life. It's never gonna be as before, but yeah, the end of the pandemic and that we can celebrate science in person again. Yeah, yeah. I think I'm gonna squeeze in a fourth one very quickly.
Go ahead.
Just I think maybe a very general wish. This is not for myself, but I wish people would take the climate crisis more seriously. Yeah, not only scientists, because I think most scientists do, but also politicians. I wish they would stop the facade, of pretending they're with small things and really take the bull by the horns and treat it like a crisis, because that's what it is. Yeah, just like we have done with the corona pandemic, I think this level of urgency should be felt in the climate crisis. I mean, you're in Germany, right? And you just recently saw the effects of the floodings and so on. And I think it's just the beginning, right? We really need to change many things, big time.
Absolutely.
So that's my squeezed in wish, fourth wish.
You get you get as many wishes as you want, of course. And I agree. I mean, the base funding if you had that base funding, you would be able to hire this female student, right? Which was
Yes.
your second wish. So it all
Yes.
ties in together. And
Yeah.
well, the end of the pandemic wish doesn't really count because, well, it's a global wish.
It's
So
a
it's
global.
not said with, it's a global wish. So let's put your climate politicians and authorities taking climate crisis more seriously and dropping this facade, as you said, and taking solid steps in dealing with it.
Yes.
Because now it's coming here. We are not that far away. The Western Europe,
Yes.
it's coming. It's here.
It's here.
It's here. There is no like it's not our problem. It's not. We are all safe. It's not. It's here. It's
Yeah.
right here.
It's right
So
here.
yeah, I hope all of your wishes come true. I mean that is really really important. Syed, it has been lovely speaking with you, learning more about you as a scientist and your science as well. But before we let you go, one
Thank you.
last thing I want to talk to you about, or want to hear your thoughts about. I mean, we did speak about a little bit about the pandemic. So the year 2020 was quite something. And so far, year 2021 also is quite something. So, what are your learnings from this pandemic?
My learnings from the pandemic. Well, I think this kind of ties with the advice also that I could give to young people. Not that I'm old, but I'm not
No,
that
you're
young
not.
anymore. Not that young anymore. Uh,
Younger, let's just call them that.
yeah, younger, exactly. So adaptability is the greatest asset. Uh, that's my number one lesson. Yeah. So we have to learn how to adapt. Yeah. I think there was a so-called normal life before the pandemic, and then all the normals were crushed, right? All the expectations from employers, from colleagues, about from each others. I think the pandemic has really taught us that we need to rethink our expectations from others. Uh, Time that give people a space and time to work from home if they can, and yeah, and also yeah, the pressures that sometimes come with science. Yeah, we need to moderate those.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's really, we need to adapt. I think that's the biggest lesson, right? Things, there's such a big air of uncertainty since 2020, and so many preconceptions have just gone out the window. And yeah, I mean, if you are one of those persons that are have high expectations and always want to, you know, things to be how they should be, um, then you are bound to disappointment and frustration. So I
True.
think this is my biggest lesson. Uh, Moderate expectations, adaptability, and greater understanding towards my colleagues and peers and friends.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And on that positive note, learnings from the pandemic, on that positive note, thank you very much for speaking with us, Ed. This has been wonderful and really
Thank you.
looking forward to having you on Real Scientist Nano.
Thank you. I very much look forward to curating the account, and would also like to thank you personally for doing this fantastic outreach initiative and giving us real scientists a platform to get with each other in contact.
Our pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sid.
Thank you for listening. To know more about us, please visit our website realscientistsnano.org and follow us on Twitter at realsci_nano.